I had always believed that marriage was built on compromise, understanding, and shared moments of joy. Lauren and I had been together for 6 years and married for 3, and I thought we were aligned on all the big things. But last Friday, everything changed in an instant. It all started while I was in the kitchen, the rich aroma of roasting chicken filling the small space. Lauren stormed in, phone in hand, her eyes burning with intensity. "I'm going to that party whether you like it or not," she snapped, her voice sharp. I paused for a moment, absorbing her tone, her certainty. It wasn't the usual playful banter we had. This was different. It was a challenge. A line had been crossed and I felt it clearly. Most men might have tried to argue, beg, or even plead. But over the years, I'd learned that showing agitation only feeds into the other person's sense of control. So I kept calm, slowly putting the knife down and replying, almost too casually, "Even better. We'll have the house to ourselves." She froze, her eyebrows shooting up in disbelief. "What do you mean by that?" she demanded, her voice tight with irritation. I let a moment pass, letting her frustration settle in the air. I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, "while you're out having fun, I'll enjoy the quiet I've been craving. We both get exactly what we want." Lauren scoffed, part frustration, part amusement. She probably thought my response would rattle me, that I would be upset, that I would try to control her. But for the first time in a long while, I realized something. Control wasn't about dominating her. It was about maintaining my composure, having patience, and knowing when to stay silent. The problem, I knew now, wasn't the party itself. It was what it represented. A disregard for boundaries, for mutual respect, and an ever-widening gap between us. For months, Lauren had brushed aside my concerns. We hadn't connected emotionally, she dismissed my need for intimacy, and I couldn't ignore the growing distance anymore. I tried everything: gentle conversations, little surprises, late-night talks, even taking time off work to reconnect. But nothing had worked. Until now. I stepped back and really looked at her. The woman I had fallen in love with now seemed like a stranger. Her once vibrant, independent nature had shifted into something sharp, almost defiant. And in that moment it hit me, this wasn't about the party. It was about respect. And I was done negotiating for it. After her outburst, I retreated to the living room, letting the silence fill the space between us. Lauren continued pacing in the kitchen, muttering under her breath about how I never understood her, how I was controlling, how she just wanted to have fun. I didn't engage. I knew any emotional response, anger, guilt, or pleading, would only fuel her narrative. So I sat there, arms crossed, and let my thoughts drift back to the past few months. The signs had always been there. Late-night texts she hid, spontaneous girls' nights out she barely mentioned, her disinterest when I tried to connect with her. I'd brushed them off as stress, exhaustion, something temporary. But now the truth was undeniable. Lauren was testing me, pushing boundaries to see how far she could go before I pushed back. When she finally left for the party, I didn't watch her go. I stayed seated, letting the emptiness of the house settle over me. For the first time in a long while, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For years, I'd been chasing her attention, trying to be the man she wanted without losing myself in the process. And now, with her gone, the silence in the house was almost a relief. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, sat by the window, and let my thoughts wander. The anger I'd felt earlier had shifted into something sharper, more precise. Clarity. I realized that my response, my actions from here on out, mattered far more than the party, than her outburst, than her tantrum. Hours passed. The house remained still, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of music from the neighbors. And then it became clear. I wasn't powerless. The power had never been in controlling her. It had always been in controlling myself. And in that control, I found the strength I needed to reclaim my own life. When Lauren returned, I was ready. I wasn't angry, nor was I resentful. I was calm, composed. She entered, expecting a confrontation, an apology, some kind of emotional display. Instead, she found me, a man who had taken back his space, his voice, and his respect. For the first time in ages, there was uncertainty in her eyes. The confident, fiery spark that had driven her out earlier was now replaced with hesitation. She realized, perhaps too late, that things had changed. She tried to justify her actions, to explain herself, but I raised a hand. "Let me finish," I said, my tone steady. "I've listened to your outbursts, your demands, and your excuses. I've tried patience. I've tried compromising. But there are lines that can't be crossed. Tonight was one of them." Her mouth opened, and her eyes widened as the weight of my words hit her. For the first time in years, I saw doubt. She understood then that the tactics she had used, manipulation, shouting, demanding her way, no longer worked. I wasn't the man who would chase after her or beg for her attention. I was the man who had drawn a line, who knew his worth and wasn't afraid to enforce boundaries. I continued, "You can have your fun, your parties, your independence, but not at the cost of my respect or our marriage. If you want to rebuild this, it has to be on equal terms. Otherwise, we both know where this ends." She swallowed hard, the fire in her eyes dimming. The tension in the room, once thick with conflict, now shifted into a quiet, unspoken understanding. She had miscalculated. She had expected me to react emotionally, begging her to stay or fighting for control. Instead, she found someone who had maintained his composure, who was unyielding in his boundaries. In the days that followed, I noticed a shift in Lauren's behavior. No more late-night parties, no more sharp tones. She approached me with caution, as though realizing that my attention, my respect, and my love were no longer automatic. I didn't punish her. I didn't gloat. I simply stood firm, holding the line. Autonomy in a relationship comes with responsibility, and reckless disregard for a partner's feelings carries consequences. By the end of the week, the house felt balanced again. The power had shifted, but it wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about presence, patience, and self-respect. Lauren had learned, not through confrontation, but through the consequences of her actions, that boundaries were non-negotiable. In that, I found not revenge but quiet satisfaction. I had taken back my life, my respect, and my home. Sometimes the most important lessons aren't the loudest, they're the ones lived, not shouted. And that night, Lauren would never forget that.